Hi everyone, and welcome back to the MPPA Alumni Series. I'm your host, Roda Siraj, and in today's episode, we'll be speaking to Darius Sookram. He graduated from the MPPA Program back in 2012. Darius speaks to us about his unique career development and shares valuable advice for future students. So thank you so much, Darius, for being a part of this episode. I'm so excited to learn about your experiences and what you're up to. Definitely different than the traditional OPS route. I see, based off your LinkedIn, you're a people-first leader, an entrepreneur, and you focus on stakeholder and government relations. But before we get into that, let's talk a bit about your background in terms of your undergrad and what led you to the MPPA program.
Well, first of all, I'm happy to be here. It's an interesting time where COVID is happening. With that being said, as we begin, I would like to acknowledge the indigenous lands that we're all on in our respective areas, and also the important social justice issues that are occurring right now, like Black Lives Matter. So just want to pay respect to that, acknowledge that there's a lot of work to do in North America and in Canada as well. But I'm so happy to be here in this moment to share what knowledge I have with you and our virtual audience. So, I did my undergrad in politics and governance, or political science, at Ryerson University, and I loved it so much that I stayed and did my master's there. I considered going a few different places, but Ryerson made it very compelling for me to stay, and I had great relationships with our professors and university staff and things like that. So I stayed, and it was probably the best decision that I ever made.
Right. So right off the bat, just after you finish undergrad, you go to graduate school. And what year did you graduate from the MPPA program?
I graduated from the master's program in 2012.
2012, and you were a full-time student?
I was full-time.
Okay.
Yes.
So I know you really love Ryerson, but you must have looked at other programs. So why this program?
There's a lot of other competitive programs that are offered, but at that time, Ryerson also, if you did a full-time program, you could do it within a year. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, if you look at where you're considering going, or if you think about a little bit further as far as experiences or co-ops, if you're interested in, let's say, the topics that are associated with the provincial governments, like health or education, or things that are more, closer in touch with folks, with people on the ground, then you look at that Ryerson being in Toronto, downtown Toronto, offering that public policy perspective is all interesting. There are a few schools, obviously, in Ottawa, and if you're looking more federally, that's something that might appeal to you as well. I looked at all these things, and scholarships included, and I decided that Ryerson would be the best fit for me based on the diversity in the organization, based on the faculty and my interests from a public policy perspective and administration perspective, and ultimately I ended up staying at a place that I can call home.
Right, that's amazing. And what were some of the favorite courses that you've taken?
So I liked. There's a bunch, and I'm not even. This is not even a boost or anything like that. There was a lot of interesting courses that I took. I took some in diversity and public service. Mm-hmm. That's something that I'm very passionate about. Inclusion, being a person of color, having a Trinidadian background. I've always thought about how I fit in society or don't fit in, and how you can make a way for others. So understanding that from a theoretical framework, and then being able to apply like critical race lens or systemic issues, and tying those things together. I took Indigenous Law and Policy with Tom Palmer, and that was I think I had studied different understandings of indigeneity and Aboriginal culture, but it took it to another level when you start looking at policy and how the history of the Indian Act and how that played in. And the last one that I know you asked for one, but the last one I would say was Policy Analysis and Challenges.
With Janet?
With Janet Lum, because you know why it's good, and I know why it's good.
It's so intense, but I loved it.
Yeah, you get to explore different topics with people and have different opinions. I've gone back a few times with her to talk to the class about, challenges or perspective from my view. But also, which is no one's talking about, you get fed in that class. You get
Okay,
food.
yes.
You get food. You get tea. You get biscuits. You get noodles. So I don't know if anyone has talked about this on your previous
I don't think
podcast or
so.
whatnot.
They always mention the course, but no one mentions the food.
Look, it's almost bribery. Like Janet kind of knew that this conversation was going to come up at some point in time, and I would be able to look back fondly and say she fed me. Like that's bribery. But that's the beauty of politics right there, and public policy. Not in bribery, but in establishing good, meaningful relationships with people. And Janet and John and Carolyn and Duncan and Neil and Tuna and Grace, they're all like really caring people that are good at fostering relationships, and they will help you as much as you seek them out. So the reason why I had so many courses that I enjoyed was because I learned a lot from them, and it's taken me to many different places. And also, I just value the relationships that I'm able to have with people that are so learned and willing to share. So
Right, definitely. And did you take part in any co-op placements?
I did. I went in the Ontario public service sector. I was with the Ministry of Training, Colleges, and Universities at the time in the Strategic Initiatives and Policy branch. Okay. And normally in government, as you may or may not know, they use acronyms. So it was like in the OPS, MTCU with the SPIV, so like that's how it's referred to. But yeah, I had a great experience there, learning a lot I had a few mentors there that took me under their wings, allowed me to work with them.
Know more about what happened after co-op, right? So all the events or your timeline leading up to where you are now, and I want to really get into what you're doing now, because obviously it's a lot different than a lot of other guests I've spoken to, and I really want to emphasize that it's not just the OPS, it's not always just government. You can go your own path, create something new. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, so and thanks for that clarity. After I graduated, I went to Nipissing University in Brantford to manage a campus there. They were working in partner with Wilfrid Laurier University, and it was a great experience, especially me coming out of graduate school for that type of senior role. And then I went to Ryerson University to work with Erin McGinn and then Jennifer Grass, who is now the VP of Government Relations there. And then I went to the Government of Canada, where I got to work with one of my mentors, Mary Ng, who eventually became the Minister of Small Business and Export Promotion, and is still the Minister, the Honorable Mary Ng, I should say. And then from there, I went to the Economic Club of Canada to work as well. And then now I'm at Entelechy Consulting as well. So a lot can happen in a few years, but all of those experiences have helped me get to the place where I am now.
Right, and talk to us more about your current position. What are you doing? What, for those of us that don't know too much about it, and what are some projects or tasks you're currently working on?
Sure. So I'm working at Entelechy as the president of the organization. A lot of the three main focuses, I would say, are government relations, diversity and inclusion, and social media marketing. So when we're talking about, let's say, social media is very explanatory, but some organizations, as part of their image and building, they want to present certain ideas, and through strategic planning and processes, we can determine, what is the best way forward. How can you build an image that's reflective of where you are now and where you'd like to go? And then the other part in there is diversity and inclusion, which is about, and a lot of people are talking about this now, so it's not just about, it's not an HR process. It's about establishing inclusive spaces, places, and understanding equity and how that plays into some of the advantages that some of us have and the disadvantages that may be given to others, and how you can work in a specific way or in a harmonious way to build synergy and to enhance profits within your organization as well.
Wow.
And then government relations is the other aspect, which is about understanding what the government needs and being able to tie what you're doing into what the government is doing as well, but also being able to share that with the public and to make sure that you're on a track to move forward in whatever way that you choose. So all of this is under the hub of strategic planning and having those types of conversations about where you want to go, where you see Canada going, and those types of things.
And would you say the MPPA program did a good job in fostering or maybe enhancing the skills that you need for this line of work?
Yeah, I mean, if you look back to something as simple as a briefing note, it's about research, it's about understanding your clients or understanding what's happening in society, and then being able to formulate, let's say, policy outcomes or ideas through that policy cycle, and then being able to action them out. So how do you do that? And if something doesn't work, you go back and you revisit it. So all of the courses that I mentioned previously and the relationships that you have with people. And sometimes to this day, I still reach out to the profs at Ryerson. If I have something that I want to propose, or I have an idea that I'm not sure about, or how can I do something better, I reach out to them to get their expert opinion and then formulate from there. So the program has not only formed from a theoretical standpoint, but also from a practical standpoint, and then also from a relationship standpoint. If you look across the board, all of my peers who graduated in 2012, and even those who I've had mentorship relationships with or learned from as well, they are all doing great things. They're all in government places, or they're in private spaces, different spaces where they're taking what they've learned and applying it. So it's a great network of people to also rely on.
Right. And I know you mentioned in the beginning, it's COVID, everything is messed up. We're trying to make sense of it.
Yes.
What does your typical day of work now, and maybe before, if it hasn't changed, look like?
I mean, so in all of these different organizations, it's been different. So with Nipissing, it was a lot of relationship building with one specific group, but then also community. At Ryerson, you kind of know what that is. You have a lot of different government relationships that you rely on. Specifically, I was working municipal government. Government of Canada is another ball game, and at the Economic Club was a lot of presenting with Entelechy. And now that it's also COVID, there's a lot of emails, there's a lot of FaceTime or Zoom calls, which can be quite fatiguing at times. But you just kind of go through the processes. In the past, I want to say 2 months, I've had 3 in-person meetings.
Really?
And it's like, yes, I have. And it's like you're starting over again.
Yeah.
To be like, hi, my name's Darius. And, that sort of thing to get to know people. But my day involves a lot of emails, a lot of personal time to be planning and to think, predict what's happening. You look at the government's elections, you look at what the government policies are on the municipal, provincial, and federal level, and then you try to understand those and have your clients meet those. And also have your clients understand what the government is trying to do as well. Because if they don't understand that, then they may propose something like, we should increase traveling right now. Well, that's not going to work if you don't do it in a safe and secure manner. And how can you time that appropriately? So a lot of it is, I think, I should also mention, stops at the fridge. It's a part of a thing now where you're in this COVID experience and it's like, oh, I want a little snack right now. Probably many snacks, but that's part of it. But ultimately, it comes down to understanding needs and understanding where you want to go with your policy or diversity work or whatnot, strategic planning. Yeah.
Right. And going back to the program a bit, is there something you wish you knew before coming into the program, something you would have done differently that future students can take as part of expert advice from you?
Wow. I would do everything the same, actually.
Really?
I would, but what that means is that I'm a very, outgoing person in a lot of ways. So when I went into the program, I was nervous. I was scared that, the work might be, it could be potentially too hard or too tough for me. But those challenges that you get are good and they help you grow, So I would reach out to as many people as possible. Like, if you don't understand something, ask. I would reach out to as many people as possible, your professors included, your networks. I would go to all the, networking right now is a little bit different.
But if it's as important, I would say.
It's just as important. So now you think of it like, okay, well, what does networking look like? You as a student can actually go on LinkedIn, search somebody up and say, hey, I would like to be where you are one day. How did you get there? I know there's a list of things that you've done, but can you teach me? Can you show me something? Can I do some work for you? So when I went to the Ministry of Training Colleges and Universities, I had people around me that were very senior, some people that were working there for 18 years, and as I went in every morning, I said good morning to everyone, and when I left, sometimes I left early, sometimes I left late, I said goodbye to everybody. That was part of my experience in building relationships with people. Mm-hmm. And through that course of time and building those relationships, some of the senior policy advisors trusted me with their work. And so I would be able to take a stab at their work. They would then take it, look at it, and say, well, you did a really great job, or here's where I would make improvements. Mm-hmm. So that, helped me form relationships, but also helped me work on my skills better. So I think, it's about still putting your name out there, getting in touch with people, and trying to learn as much as you can. And you can do that through relationships with your professors and friends, your peers. You can learn a lot from your peers too. In the program, there's people that have all different backgrounds. I met people in journalism, I met people in marketing, and you can make those connections and rely on people when you need help. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's amazing. And you already touched on the fact that professors were genuinely interested and they're kind of like looking out for you, I would say. Yeah. What is a favorite memory you have from the program? Apart from the coursework, apart from the food offered to you, something that you look back and think, wow, like this was such a fun time.
I mean, some of the projects that we did were fun, but we had a lot of these networking sessions with the program, and I had a lot of fun just going, like having a glass of wine, or if you don't drink wine, a ginger ale or whatever it may be, and just meeting with people and engaging with them. Mm-hmm. And I found like our group, there are people that I still keep in touch with today. Like the program size it's definitely hard to get into, but it's a small knit group. You can actually have like, good friendships with people and pick their brains and things like that. So I think like the networking events were a lot of fun. Right. Having the food. I think anything that brings with food, obviously there's a clear tie between my success and food and my happiness and food. So the program,
just based off of this entire conversation, I think anything to do with food and networking, where you can be social, like those are the two things you'd be happy with.
Those two things go hand in hand. And mind you, as a pro tip, if you're ever going to a networking event that has food, always eat your food before you go, because you don't want to be that dude stuffing your face. It's kind of ironic me saying this, but you don't want to be that person stuffing your face and missing out on so many of the good conversations that you can have, right?
So that's some advice I've never heard before, but definitely something.
Eat before you go, and only give out your business card to people that you have meaningful conversations with, and that means having meaningful conversations with, like, hi, how's your day, how's it going, blah, 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 like, that's neither here nor there. What are you passionate about? What do you enjoy doing? What made you put your foot in this door, or what would you do differently, So, right. Like those kind of things are always important. So, yeah. Right.
And my final question would be, would your workplace be interested in hiring co-op students, especially from Ryerson in the future, or do they do that already?
Yeah, no, I think it's something that we would be interested in. Obviously, it's a unique time where people's jobs and times are different, but in the future, I'm always happy to be connected that has anything to do with Ryerson, specifically the politics and governance program or the master's program of public policy and administration. So hit me up. You know where to find me. Virtual audience, find me on LinkedIn or social media or something. If you don't, you're not doing your networking job. So there you go.
That's a good test. Test out your networking.
And please don't just add a connection without having any conversation. A lot of people do that. They'll add me, and if you don't say like, "Hey, I'm from XYZ," I won't add you back.
Right.
I'm not that type of person. I know a lot of people do things that way, but I'd rather have a good rapport, understanding where people are coming from. So. Yeah.
Right. So Darius, thank you so much for your time. I'm sure future students can definitely benefit from the advice you've given, and look forward to the food that you mentioned. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me and for providing a space for me to share and reflect on my experiences with you and others. And keep up the great work. This has been an awesome, fun time for me to talk about myself.
Thank you so much. Well, everyone, I'd like to end the episode here. I hope that this discussion shed light on different career paths you can take apart from the OPS. Stay tuned until next time.